The massive space station called Celestial Harmony floated in the darkness between stars. Inside its main meeting room, alien leaders from across the galaxy sat around a glowing table. Their voices filled the air with worry and fear. Ambassador Veltai stood up quickly. She was tall and thin, made of living crystal that sparkled under the bright lights. Her voice shook as she spoke through the translation machine that helped all the different aliens understand each other. 17 colonies are gone, she said, hitting the table with her crystal hand. The sound echoed through the room like breaking glass. 17 whole settlements across 4 different star systems. All empty. No one left behind. The other aliens looked at each other with wide eyes. Commander Thex, who looked like a giant lizard with thick scales, leaned forward in his chair. His yellow eyes glowed with concern. "We found no emergency signals," he said in his deep voice. "No signs of space battles. No broken buildings. The people just disappeared like they never existed." On the other side of the room, a blue alien with many tentacles waved them nervously. "Our best scientists went to check the empty places. They found nothing. It's like the people just walked away and never came back." Far away from the space station, on a moon covered with thick forests, something very different was happening. The moon orbited a gas giant planet, and 2 smaller moons hung in the dark sky above the trees. In those forests, 3 humans moved like ghosts. Deho lay flat on his stomach behind a fallen tree. His clothes were the same colors as the forest around him. He had been lying there for 6 hours without moving, watching a small alien town in the valley below. His eyes were different from normal human eyes. They could see much better in the dark and notice tiny movements from very far away. The town belonged to the Valkyrie, aliens who looked like tall, thin people with silver skin and large black eyes. They had built their homes around a central power station that glowed with soft blue light. Guards walked around the town's edges, carrying weapons that hummed with energy. 30 meters away, hidden behind thick bushes, Sominit watched the same town. She was small and quick, with black hair tied back tightly. Her fingers moved in tiny gestures that only her team could understand. The movements meant 6 guards. They change positions every 4 hours. There's a spot by the Eastern Power Building where no one can see. Even farther away, Hyunwoo crouched in a tree, his body perfectly still like a hunting cat. He saw Sominit's signals and touched the bark of his tree in a special pattern. The touch meant "We'll move the people out by morning. We'll leave no signs we were here." These 3 humans were not like the humans who had once lived on Earth long ago. Their bodies had been changed over many generations of living among the stars. They could see better, hear better, and move more quietly than any animal. Their hearts beat slower, their breathing was controlled, and they could stay perfectly still for days if needed. For 23 days, they had watched this Valkyrie settlement. They knew when every guard went to sleep. They knew which families had small children. They knew where the backup power systems were hidden. They knew which buildings were strongest and which paths through town were darkest. The Valkyrie had no idea they were being watched. The aliens walked through their daily lives, working and playing and sleeping, never knowing that patient eyes followed their every move. The humans had learned the alien language just by listening. They understood the town's schedule better than the people who lived there. The 3 humans had done this many times before, on many different worlds. They were part of something larger, groups of human hunters spread across the galaxy, studying alien civilizations like scientists study insects. But they were not scientists. They were predators. As the 2 moons moved across the sky and reached the highest point of night, Deho slowly raised his hand. It was time. The signal passed between the 3 humans without sound, without light, without anything the aliens could detect. Sominit moved first, flowing through the forest like water. Her feet never broke a twig or rustled a leaf. She reached the power station and placed small devices that would make the aliens sleep deeply. The devices released a gas that had no smell and no color, but would make everyone in town dream so heavily they would not wake up for hours. Hyunwoo came next, entering the town from the opposite side. He moved from house to house like a shadow, checking on each family. The sleeping aliens were lifted gently and carried to a transport ship hidden in the forest. They would wake up on a different world, safe but confused. Deho was the last to enter the town. His job was to remove all traces of what had happened. He erased computer records, cleaned away footprints, and made sure no evidence remained. To anyone who found the town later, it would look like the people had simply vanished into air. By the time the sun rose over the forest moon, the Valkyrie settlement stood completely empty. The buildings were perfect, the power still ran, and the gardens were still growing. But every living soul was gone. The only signs left behind were things no alien would notice, a few footprints in soft soil that led nowhere, some bent grass that would straighten by afternoon, and a feeling in the air that something old and patient had been watching from the darkness. The hunt was complete, and the hunters had already disappeared back into the forest, leaving behind only questions that would puzzle the galaxy's greatest minds. 3 weeks had passed since the Valkyrie settlement disappeared. The Galactic Council was getting more worried every day. More colonies kept vanishing across different star systems, and nobody could explain how or why it was happening. A special investigation ship called Truthseeker arrived at the empty Valkyrie town. The ship was big in silver, covered with sensors and scanning equipment. It carried the galaxy's best detectives and scientists, all hoping to solve the mystery of the missing people. Ambassador ZYX Thala appeared on the ship's main deck like a ghost made of light. She was not solid like most beings, but made of pure energy that glowed blue and white. She was the best tracker in the crystalline hegemony, famous for finding things that others said were impossible to find. Her energy form crackled and sparked when she was angry or frustrated, and right now she was both. "What do our sensors show?" she asked, her voice sounding like wind chimes in a storm. Lieutenant Kex looked up from his control station. He was a short, round alien with 8 tentacles instead of arms and legs. His tentacles moved quickly over glowing buttons and screens that floated in the air. His big eyes looked worried as he read the results. "The same thing we found at all the other empty places," he said sadly. "No energy signatures from weapons. No signs that spaceships landed here. No leftover radiation from any technology we know about. It's like the people just disappeared into nothing." Dr. Yilendros stood near the window, looking down at the empty town below. He was tall and thin, with pale purple skin and no hair. His most unusual feature was the thin, worm-like tentacles that grew from his head where hair should be. These tentacles could read thoughts and feelings from far away, which made him very valuable for investigations. The doctor's tentacles waved slowly in the air as he tried to sense what had happened in the town. Suddenly, his whole body shook like he was cold, and his tentacles pulled back against his head. "There is something very strange here," he whispered, his voice full of fear. "I can feel that something was watching this place. Something that thinks in a way that is completely different from us. It's patient. More patient than anything I have ever sensed before. It can wait and wait and wait, like a spider sitting in its web." What none of the investigators knew was that they were being watched right now. 2 kilometers away, on a high hill covered with trees, a human woman named Unji lay hidden behind rocks and bushes. She had been there for 6 hours, watching every move the aliens made through a special telescope that could see very far and very clearly. Unji was small and quick, with short black hair and dark eyes that missed nothing. Like all the human hunters, her body had been changed over many years. Her eyes could see much better than normal human eyes. Her ears could hear sounds from very far away. Her nose could smell things that most people could never notice. Through her telescope, she watched the alien investigators walk around the empty town. They moved slowly and carefully, but to her trained eyes, they looked clumsy and predictable. They followed the same search patterns that were taught in schools across the galaxy. They used their senses in the same way every military force used them. They had no idea that someone was studying them just like they were trying to study the empty settlement. A very quiet voice spoke in Unji's ear through a tiny device planted inside her head. The voice belonged to Jinho, another human hunter who was watching from a different hiding place. The device used a sound frequency so low that alien equipment would think it was just background noise from space. "I count 12 investigators," Jinho whispered. "Standard Galactic Council team. They have a support ship in orbit with about 50 crew members. Nothing unusual about their setup." Unji responded by barely moving her throat muscles. The tiny vibrations were picked up by her communication device and sent to Jinho. To anyone watching, it would look like she was just breathing normally. "How easy would they be to take?" she asked silently. "Very easy," Jinho replied. "But if we capture them, it will change everything. Right now, the galaxy doesn't know we exist. If we show ourselves, there will be war." Unji smiled, and her teeth looked sharper than normal human teeth. All the human hunters had developed these enhanced teeth over generations of living in the wild and hunting dangerous prey. The galaxy's great civilizations had become soft and weak, she thought. They depended too much on their machines and their technology. They had forgotten the most basic truth of survival, that somewhere in the darkness, predators were always hunting. As night fell over the empty settlement, the alien investigators set up their camp. They put up energy barriers and posted guards. They thought their technology would keep them safe. Dr. Yilendros went to his private quarters, a small room sealed with the strongest locks the council could make. But technology and locks meant nothing to human hunters who had learned to move like ghosts and strike like lightning. In the middle of the night, Dr. Ylandros simply vanished from his sealed room. The locks were still locked. The energy barriers were still working. The guards saw nothing and heard nothing. But in the morning, the psychic specialist was gone. The only trace left behind was a very faint smell that the alien investigators could not identify. It was the scent of a human hunter marking territory, a smell that meant this place belongs to us now. The alien investigators had not slept well since Dr. Ylandros disappeared. They sat in their camp surrounded by the strongest energy shields their technology could make. Bright lights lit up the area around them, and sensors swept the darkness constantly, looking for any sign of movement. Ambassador ZYX Thala's energy form flickered and sparked like a broken light bulb. Her usual calm blue glow had turned into rapid flashes of red and orange, showing how scared and angry she was. She tried again and again to contact the Galactic Council, but something was interfering with their communications. "We need help," she said into her communication device, her voice shaking. "Something is hunting us one by one. Our mind readers can sense intelligence out there, but it thinks in ways we have never seen before. Our best trackers find footprints and broken branches, but the trails always end in empty space. Whatever is doing this, it has evolved to hunt beings like us." Lieutenant Kex's 8 tentacles moved nervously over his control panel. His sensors showed nothing dangerous nearby, but he knew that meant nothing now. 3 more team members had vanished in the past 2 days, taken from their sealed rooms without any trace of how it happened. "The energy barriers are at full power," he reported, though his voice showed he had little faith in their protection. "All sensors are working. Guards are posted at every entrance." Commander Thex paced back and forth inside the camp, his heavy scales making scraping sounds against each other. This was the sound his species made when they were very afraid. His hand never left his weapon, but he was beginning to understand that weapons might not help against whatever was hunting them. That was when a figure stepped out of the darkness and into their circle of light. Every alien in the camp pointed their weapons at the stranger before he had taken a second step. But something about the way he moved made several of them hesitate. The creature walked with such smooth confidence that it was like watching water flow downhill. He showed no fear of their weapons, no concern about being outnumbered. The being looked almost familiar in some ways. He stood on 2 legs like many species did. His body was the same on both sides, with 2 arms and 2 legs. His eyes faced forward like a predator's eyes should. But there was something in his posture, in the way he held himself, that made every alien's survival instinct scream danger. "You can put your weapons down," the stranger said, speaking perfect galactic standard. But his voice was strange. It carried sounds and vibrations that went straight to the brain without needing translation. Every alien understood him completely, even species that normally needed machines to understand other languages. "If we wanted to kill you," he continued calmly, "you would already be dead." Before the aliens could react, 4 more figures appeared around their camp. They seemed to step out of shadows that should not have been able to hide anyone. The aliens realized with growing terror that these creatures had been surrounding their camp for hours, maybe days, without being detected by any of their advanced sensors. Sominit moved like a hunting cat, silent and deadly. Hyun Woo appeared from behind equipment that was too small to hide a person. Their movements were perfectly coordinated, like they were parts of the same organism. Ambassador ZYX Thala's energy form flickered wildly as fear took over her consciousness. "What are you?" she managed to ask, her voice barely a whisper. Eunji stepped into the light, with Jinho appearing beside her from what had seemed like empty air. She smiled, and the aliens could see that her teeth were sharper than they should be, designed for tearing meat. "We are what your species forgot how to be," she said simply. "We are hunters. And this galaxy has given us the most interesting prey we have found in hundreds of years." Commander Thex's scales rattled so loudly now that it sounded like rain on metal. "The missing colonies," he began, his voice full of horror. "Are safe," Daeho interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. "We moved them to worlds where they can grow and develop without anyone bothering them. We hunt for the challenge of it, not to kill everything we find. But you need to understand something very important. Every species in this galaxy is prey to us now. We know your weaknesses. We know your habits. We know what you fear. We have been watching and learning for longer than your civilizations have existed." The lead alien investigator tried to raise his weapon, but his hands were shaking too much to aim properly. "You're just one species," he said, trying to sound brave. "The galaxy has millions of civilizations. Billions of soldiers. Technology you cannot imagine. Jinho laughed quietly. Your technology cannot detect us when we stand right next to you. Your soldiers cannot fight enemies they cannot see or hear. Your civilizations have made you soft and slow and predictable. The humans began to step backward into the darkness. As they moved, the shadows seemed to bend and wrap around them like living things. Within seconds, they had become nearly invisible again. Tell your council, Sominet's voice came from the darkness around them, seeming to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The galaxy has new rulers. We are the apex predators now. One by one, the human voices faded away, leaving the aliens alone in their circle of light. But now they knew the truth. The light meant nothing. The weapons meant nothing. The technology meant nothing. Something had been watching them from the darkness all along, and that something was far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The age of human hunters had begun. The great meeting hall of the Galactic Council had never seen such chaos. Representatives from over 1,000 different worlds filled the massive room, their voices rising in panic and disbelief. The translation machines that normally helped everyone understand each other were breaking down from too many people shouting at once. Ambassador ZYX Thala stood at the center of the room, her energy form flickering rapidly as she tried to explain what had happened to her investigation team. But many of the council members refused to believe her report. General Keth slammed his massive fist on his desk, making a sound like thunder. He was huge, even for his warrior species, with thick muscles and scars covering his gray skin. His people had been bred for fighting for 17 generations, making them the strongest soldiers in the galaxy. This is impossible, he roared, his voice drowning out many others. Nothing can hunt the Dominion Guard. My soldiers are perfect warriors. They fear nothing and can defeat any enemy. Across the room, High Adept Mordun shook his bald head firmly. He was thin and pale, with large eyes that glowed with psychic power. His people, the Mind Weavers, could read thoughts from across star systems and control minds with their will. The Mind Weavers cannot be touched, he said with absolute certainty. Nothing can get close to us without our minds detecting it first. We would know about these humans long before they could threaten us. Admiral Hex spoke in a voice that sounded like a machine, because that was exactly what he was. His body was made of metal and circuits, and his people had replaced all their organic parts with technology long ago. Our space scanning systems watch every part of our territory, he said coldly. Every ship, every asteroid, every particle of dust is tracked and identified. These humans you speak of cannot exist without us knowing about it. But even as the council members argued, new reports kept arriving from across the galaxy. Military bases that had been heavily guarded were found completely empty in the morning, with no signs of battle or struggle. Psychic communities that should have been impossible to approach had been abandoned overnight, their most powerful telepaths simply gone without leaving any mental traces behind. Space stations protected by the most advanced technology were discovered shut down and deserted. Whoever had gotten inside had moved through laser barriers and security systems like they were not even there, leaving no traces in the computer systems. On the fortress world of Kraxon, General Keth decided to prove that his warriors could not be defeated. He sent his best soldiers to protect the planetary capital city, setting up defenses that had never failed before. Automated gun turrets were placed on every building and street corner. Energy barriers that could stop starship weapons surrounded the city. Sensors that could detect a mouse from 10 kilometers away scanned the air and ground constantly. It was the strongest defense any world had ever seen. High above the planet, floating in empty space, Minitsu watched all these preparations through the hull of his invisible spacecraft. His enhanced eyes could see through solid metal like it was glass, letting him track every soldier's movement and every weapon placement. The aliens had made a terrible mistake, he realized. By putting all their defenses in one place, they had created the perfect hunting ground. The soldiers could only see down certain streets and paths. They followed patrol routes that were easy to predict. And worst of all, they were all nervous and scared, waiting for an attack that might never come in the way they expected. Minitsu spoke into his communication device, sending his voice to human hunters spread across 17 different worlds. They're using standard military tactics, he reported. Fortress defense with predictable patterns. They're actually making this easier for us. From another world, Hyjin's laughter came through the quantum communication network. She was watching psychic communes that had tried to protect themselves by meditating together, thinking their combined mental power would create an unbreakable barrier. The mind readers are trying to make psychic walls, she said, still laughing. They don't understand that we can just wait for them to get tired and fall asleep. Meditation doesn't last forever. At exactly 3 o'clock in the morning, local time on each world, the coordinated hunt began. 4 to 7 worlds across the galaxy were hit at the same moment. Human hunters who had been watching and waiting for weeks finally moved into action. On Kraxon, General Ketha's perfect defenses meant nothing. The humans flowed through the city like water, avoiding sensors and weapons with ease. They moved through ventilation systems, underground tunnels, and forgotten maintenance passages that did not appear on any official maps. The psychic communes found that their mental barriers could not detect minds that thought in completely alien ways. The technology stations discovered that their computer systems could not track intruders who left no digital traces and used no technology the machines could recognize. By the time the sun rose, the galaxy's most secure and heavily defended places stood empty and silent. The soldiers, psychics, and technicians who had thought themselves unbeatable had vanished without a trace. But unlike the earlier disappearances, this time there were survivors who saw what happened. A few guards and workers had been left behind deliberately, to carry a message back to their governments. The message was simple and terrifying: the humans were not hiding anymore. They had shown the galaxy exactly what they could do, and no defense in known space could stop them. The age of galactic civilization was ending, and the age of human hunters had begun. 5 years had passed since the galaxy first learned about the human hunters. Everything had changed in ways that no one could have imagined when the crisis began. The great civilizations that once ruled the stars had shrunk back to their core worlds. These planets had become giant fortress cities, with tall walls and powerful energy shields surrounding every settlement. The people lived crowded together behind these barriers, hoping that thick metal and strong force fields might slow down the hunters if they ever came. The outer edges of the galaxy had been abandoned completely. Whole star systems that once bustled with trade and colonization now stood empty, their planets returning to wilderness. These areas had become vast hunting grounds where humans moved like ghosts through forests and mountains, becoming legends that frightened children across 1,000 worlds. But not every species had chosen to hide behind walls and shields. Some had found different ways to survive in this new galaxy. The Archivists, a race of scholarly beings who collected knowledge from across the universe, had made a deal with the human hunters. They offered ancient wisdom, star maps, and scientific discoveries in exchange for protection. The humans found their vast libraries useful for learning about new prey species, so they agreed to guard the Archivists from other predators. The Merchant Guild had adapted in their own way. These traders who carried goods between worlds had learned to purchase something they called hunting permits. These were small tokens given by human packs that allowed merchant ships safe passage through human territory. As long as they carried these permits and followed specific trade routes, they could conduct business without fear. In what remained of the Galactic Council, Ambassador ZYX Thala addressed a much smaller group of representatives. Her energy form now spoke from behind 7 layers of protective shielding, each barrier designed to stop different types of attacks. "We must accept our new reality," she said, her voice carrying through the shields with resignation. "The humans don't want to take over our worlds or steal our technology. They hunt because that is what they are. We have become their preferred prey, and nothing we do can change that basic fact." Far from the political meetings and fortress cities, on a beautiful garden world at the very edge of the galaxy, Deho sat on a cliff watching the sun set. The sky was painted in colors that no human had ever seen before humans reached the stars, deep purples and bright oranges that Earth's sky had never shown. His pack had grown larger over the 5 years. New humans kept arriving from the deep reaches of space, coming from places so far away that their names were not on any galactic maps. Each newcomer brought stories of other galaxies they had visited, other species they had hunted, other worlds that offered new challenges. Unji walked up the cliff path and sat beside him, looking out over their temporary camp in the valley below. Their people moved through the camp with the quiet efficiency that marked all human settlements now. "The reports from Andromeda have been confirmed," she said calmly. 600 billion stars in that galaxy. More species than we can count. Most of them have never faced persistence hunters like us. So Minute joined them on the cliff, her enhanced hearing picking up sounds from very far away. She could hear one of their newest pack members approaching through the forest, a human who had spent the last 30 years hunting in the Magellanic Clouds, small galaxies that orbited near their own. "The younger hunters are getting restless," so Minute observed. "The prey species here have started to adapt to our presence. They're learning to hide better, to run faster, to work together. It's making the hunts too easy and predictable." Hyunwoo emerged from the tree line carrying fresh meat from his latest hunt. The creature slung over his shoulder looked like a mix between a deer and a praying mantis, with long thin legs and compound eyes. It was one of the few native species on this world that still provided an interesting tracking challenge. "The elders are right," he said, setting down his prize. "This galaxy is reaching balance. The prey animals know how to avoid us, the civilizations have learned to stay hidden, and there are fewer surprises every year. It's time to find new hunting grounds." As the first stars began to appear in the alien sky above them, Deho smiled. Humanity had finally found its true purpose among the stars. They were not meant to be explorers mapping new worlds, or conquerors building empires, or traders selling goods between planets. They were hunters, the ultimate predators that the universe had been waiting for. They had brought balance to civilizations that had grown too comfortable and soft. They had reminded every species in the galaxy of an ancient truth that had been forgotten during the long peace, that somewhere in the darkness, patient eyes were always watching, and death could come silently in the night. In the distance, human ships were preparing for a journey longer than any they had taken before. Their crews were eager and excited about the new challenges waiting for them in unexplored space. The Andromeda galaxy beckoned with the promise of fresh prey and untested hunting grounds. Behind them, they would leave a galaxy forever changed. Every alien species now remembered what their ancestors had known, that survival meant staying alert, staying hidden, and never forgetting that the greatest hunters in the cosmos were always one step ahead. The great hunt would continue among new stars, in new galaxies, until every corner of the universe had learned what it meant to face humanity unleashed. The age of human hunters had only just begun.